In a world where knowledge is power, education is the currency we trade in. But what if this currency inflates to a point of devaluation? What if the very tool designed to empower us becomes the chain that holds us back? Is it possible that we are drowning in a sea of education, gasping for the air of practical wisdom? Let's unravel the hidden disadvantages of education overload. Importance of education. Education is like a magic key that can unlock a world of opportunities. It equips you with essential skills that are foundational for almost everything you'll do in life. For instance, reading is not just about enjoying books. It's a skill you'll use when you're following a recipe, reading a contract, or even navigating a map. Writing is equally important. You'll need to write emails, fill out forms, and maybe even create reports in your job. These are life skills that enable you to function effectively in society. Problem solving is another critical skill you gain from education. In school, when you are told to solve math problems, you're actually learning how to think logically. Now, this skill is crucial in everyday situations, whether you're trying to fix a leaky faucet or trying to figure out the fastest route to work. However, schools also offer a unique environment where you can be exposed to various cultures and viewpoints. In a history class, you might learn about different countries and how their cultures have shaped them. In literature, you might read stories from authors who come from different backgrounds. Even in math and science, you can learn about the diverse people who have contributed to those fields. This exposure helps you to appreciate the richness of human diversity and teaches you to value different perspectives. It broadens your understanding of the world, making you more empathetic and open-minded. And the best part? Education helps you earn more money, at least in most cases. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, people with a bachelor's degree earn around $500 more per week than those with just a high school diploma. That's a lot of extra cash. Over a lifetime, that can add up to over $1 million. But it's not just about earning more money. When you're educated, you're more likely to get a job to begin with. The unemployment rate for people with at least a bachelor's degree is much lower compared to those without. Now, let's zoom out a bit and look at the whole country. Countries that invest in education do better in lots of ways. They have stronger economies, which means more jobs and more opportunities for everyone. For example, countries like Singapore and Finland, which are big on education, have some of the strongest economies in the world. They're not rich because they have oil or gold. They're rich because they have smart, skilled people. Furthermore, when a country's economy is strong, it's better for everyone living there. There are more jobs, better healthcare, and even less crime. In fact, according to a study by the National Bureau of Economic Research, a 1% increase in high school graduation rates can save a country up to $1.4 billion in costs related to crime. The downside. Now you see, when we talk about education, we usually focus on the good stuff. Better jobs, more money, and a brighter future, right? But there's another side to this story that we don't hear about as much. First off, let's talk about jobs since we just discussed them. You'll think that the more educated you are, the easier it is to get a job. But that's not always the case. According to many sources, there's a growing number of people who are overqualified for the jobs they're doing. Imagine spending years in college only to end up in a job you could have gotten without a degree. That's frustrating, isn't it? And it's not just about feeling stuck, it's also about the money you're not making. When you're overqualified, you're often underpaid, and that's a double whammy when you've got student loans to pay off. Then, there are also student loans. In some countries, this might not be an issue. However, in most developed countries like the United States, student debt has reached a staggering $1.7 trillion. Yes, trillion with a T. That's more than credit card debt and auto loans. And guess what? This debt isn't just a burden on individuals, it's a burden on the whole economy. When people are drowning in debt, they're not buying houses or cars or starting families. They're not contributing to the economy in the ways they could if they were debt-free. Now, let's talk about skills. You'd think that with all this education, we'd have a workforce that's super skilled, right? Well, not exactly. There's something called skills mismatch, which means that the skills people have don't match the skills employers need. For example, you might have a degree in history, but end up working in a job that requires data analysis. This is a mismatch, and it's not just about you not using what you've learned, it's also about employers not finding the right talent. This mismatch is a big deal because it affects productivity and, ultimately, the economy. To add fuel to the fire, things are changing super fast. You might have heard people talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It's a fancy term that basically means technology is changing everything about how we live and work. According to the World Economic Forum, by 2025, we'll need a whole new set of skills. We're talking about things like creativity, problem solving, and emotional intelligence. These aren't things you can easily learn from a textbook, but they're becoming super important for all kinds of jobs. So, what's the big deal? Well, the problem is that schools and colleges are kind of slow to catch up. They're still focused on teaching the same old stuff that might not be that useful in the real world. That's a challenge because it means a lot of us are learning things that won't help us get a job or be successful in life. It's like training for a soccer game by practicing basketball. You're not going to be very good on the soccer field if you're shooting hoops all day, right? Last but not least, let's switch gears and talk about something called skilled migration, yet another area where the effects of education overload become evident, but in a different way. Skilled migration is when people who have special skills or education move from one place to another. It sounds like a good thing, right? Well, it's a bit more complicated than that. You see, when a person with a lot of education and skills moves to another country, it can be great for the place they're going to. For example, a doctor from one country might move to another country where there are not enough doctors. That's a win for the country getting the new doctor. But what about the country that the doctor left? They've just lost a skilled person, and that can be a problem, especially if lots of skilled people are leaving. This is often called brain drain, and it can be a big issue for some countries. Now, let's add another layer to this. What if the country gaining all these skilled people doesn't actually have enough jobs for them? That's where we see the downside of education overload again. You might have a country full of highly educated people, both from that country and from other places, but not enough jobs that need those high-level skills. So, you end up with a lot of people who are overqualified for the jobs they can get, just like we talked about before. And here's another twist. Sometimes people move for a job thinking it's going to be great, but it turns out not to be what they expected. Maybe the job doesn't pay as well as they thought, or the living conditions aren't good, or they just don't like it for some other reason. Now they're stuck in a place far from home with a job they don't like, and that's tough. So, is education a boon or a bane when taken to the extreme? The answer, it seems, is not as straightforward as we might think. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. See you next time.